much. Thank you for having me here. I was asked to talk a bit more about the social perspectives on CCS. And I'm Prins. I am the program lead for industrial transformation at Natuur and Milieu. Let me see how this works. Yes, Natuur and Milieu is a Dutch environmental NGO. We work on climate change and biodiversity, and we do that through policy advocacy, building coalitions with other organizations and companies, and our campaigns. For example, we introduced the concept of the flexitarian 10 years ago already, and we were the first to introduce an electric sharing lease car to the Dutch people. And I actually studied my master's at the Copernicus Institute at Utrecht University. And back then, I think half of the PhDs were funded by Cato 1. So it's kind of nice to be here. So obviously, this conference is about CCS. But I cannot talk about CCS without painting the broader picture of industrial transformation. Industry accounts for 30% of our Dutch greenhouse gas emissions. So if we want to keep climate change below 1.5, we need to cut industrial emissions fast and deep. And we need a lot. We need to do a lot. First, we need energy efficiency and circularity. And we can do that through norm standards and linking circular economy a bit more with our climate targets. Then we need a lot of electrification, direct and also indirect with hydrogen, and therefore we also need a lot of infrastructure. And we need CCS, a right deployment of CCS, also CCU and CDR, to eventually phase out fossil fuels. So a bit more on energy efficiency. In the light of the Ukraine war, there's more attention to energy efficiency, which is a good thing because it has always been a bit of forgotten, despite our, regulations in the Netherlands. And if done right, energy efficiency and circular economy models can have up to 30% of energy demand reduction. So that is huge. We also need a lot of renewable electricity. Obviously, there's a lot of going on with hydrogen, and we need hydrogen, but it's not for all. And direct electrification always has been the underdog of industrial transformation. But whether you choose the pathway of circular economy or new processes or the more business as usual with CCS, we need a lot of green electricity. So we need to work on that as well. And then the favorite topic of today, CCS. I think Joella already showed this picture. In all the decarbonization options for industry, I think CCS is the one that has been publicly debated a lot. And this is an argument map that shows the pros and cons, and you cannot read it. But the idea is that for every reason to do CCS, you can name a reason not to. And in the Netherlands, well, the discussion has been going on a long time, even from Barendrecht to the road project that didn't come through, where we wanted to do CCS on coal-fired power plants, and we wanted to phase out coal. So actually we are here now, and we're focusing on industry, and I think that sheds a new light on CCS. So for the civil society perspective on the risks, it's mainly on the lock-in risks of prolonging the use of fossil fuels, delaying scaling up of renewable technologies, and, well, eventually being stuck with stranded assets and perhaps also competitive disadvantages. And also the fact that CCS, or rather the capture, takes a lot of energy and that capture rates are not 100% is a concern too. And last, there are also concerns about safety and ecological impacts, especially now we're implementing the projects. And related to that, the framework of liability and who is responsible for these projects on the long term. But of course, our biggest concern is climate change. So in 2019, we took a lot of time during the negotiations of the climate agreement to talk about these concerns. And although the debate, and I see some of you in the room who were there, the debate was pretty heated and well, took a lot of our energy and time, we actually reached some consensus. That is how we do that in the Netherlands. And we reached consensus on that, yes, we need CCS, but yes, there are also risks that we have to address, and that we need sufficient funding left for other technologies than CCS. So the government constructed a CCS framework, which consists of a CEF, which actually states that CCS is only funded when there are no other alternatives. There's a cap that puts a maximum on the funding, that public funding that goes to CCS. And we have a horizon that states that after 2035, no more grants will be issued for CCS projects, where negative emissions are excluded. So from our perspective, I think the outcome could be better. For example, we really wish to have a portfolio obligation in there that states that if you wish to do CCS, you also have the obligation to invest in renewable technologies. But this is actually the result we could live with. And I, for one, I'm really happy that we took the time to address our concerns and that we came up with a framework that actually works. When I talk to other NGOs in other countries, I also wish for them to have these discussions in their own country and to have their government also have a framework, because I really believe that this keeps decarbonization going while addressing the concerns in society as well. So, is the discussion ready? Well, I don't think so, because when the projects now are being implemented here in the Netherlands, the discussion also grows on how to regulate the market. Are we going to regulate it like the gas or electricity market, or perhaps like hydrogen? And these are important questions because with the increase of the CCS projects, the public interest also increased because, well, we are becoming more dependent on these projects to meet our climate goals. So we actually call for more public regulation on these big, large infrastructural projects, which is CCS. Yeah, then a last thing. I focused mainly on CCS in my story. But of course, this conference is also about CCU and I think also a bit about CDR, carbon removal. And they're obviously not the same. They're all important, but they're not the same. And we see a lot of things going on right now in the world and things to try to scale things up. But we see also some mixing up between CCU and CCS. Also some confusion about what is the definition of carbon removal and carbon usage, and particularly the fact or the idea that people think that CCU is actually better than CCS because at least you make use of the carbon. But actually only one thing matters, and that is that the carbon is prevented from release to the atmosphere and contributing to climate change, whether by direct reduction or permanent storage in our ground or in sustainable materials. So I want to conclude, CCS, nor CCU, nor CDR is a silver bullet. And sometimes we as NGOs are blamed a bit by dismissing options, but we need all options, and I totally agree with that. But therefore, I also ask to not dismiss other options as well. So we also need circular economy models, energy efficiency, electrification, as well as CCS. And we need to work on the whole package because that is the only way we can keep 1.5 alive. I thank you very much.